Hi there, and welcome to JLB Track tutorials. Track can be used to record and maintain a register of environmental impact assessments in the Environmental Aspects and Impacts Register screen. Today's tutorial will provide a demonstration for the screen in Track. I will show you how to raise an environmental impact assessment, or EIA for shorthand, assess the level of risk, and other key details pertaining to the environment screen. So, to add an EIA to the Environmental Aspects and Impacts Register, select New on the top toolbar. A new EIA will appear. However, today I'll be showing you an existing EIA to shorten the tutorial. We can see that all the fields have been filled out. If you were to fill out a new one though, the first thing to do is fill out the date raised. The date raised defaults to the current date but can be changed to when the assessment was initiated. Then, who the entry is raised by using the drop-down field. Also adding which aspect group using the drop-down field as well. And the specific environmental aspect, or the activity in other words. A description of the environmental impact or the potential change or harm can then be entered. Then finally selecting which department or division the environmental impact is relevant to, and also adding the operational area where the environmental impact is located, if applicable. Once this preliminary information of the environmental assessment has been added, the new EIA can then be saved by closing the page, saving when prompted. Once saved, another prompt will appear requesting a reason for updating the EIA. The default reviewed and amendments made may be selected, or any other reason typed and saved. For example, initial assessment, control added, action taken, and so on. The person or team who is responsible for assessing the environmental assessment should then be advised of the new EIA. This may be completed by printing or emailing the EIA. To assess the potential risk without a control implemented, refer to the company's risk assessment procedure, and then, within the EIA, select the likelihood of it occurring, using the drop-down field. Select the consequence of the hazard, also using the drop-down field. And then the level of risk will automatically be mapped. The likelihood and consequence should be mapped against the level of risk and configuration from the company's risk assessment procedure. The company's risk assessment process and criteria can be linked to Track as a PDF document. It will appear whenever Risk Help is selected. This will allow various descriptions of the various likelihood, consequence, and risk criteria to be described. As we continue with the initial risk assessment, we need to tick significant if the risk is significant. What is significant should be described in your system documentation. Select whether your environmental impact is an actual or potential impact. Then decide whether this is a past, current, or future impact. We then need to add whether the environmental hazard has any legislative or regulatory impact, and also ticking the company complies field if the company is complying with the respective legislation or regulation. We can then add any interested parties that are external to our company, and finally adding if there is any quantitative data available on their environmental hazard, such as invoices or reports. The final area to fill out relates to the controls or preventative measures to reduce the risk. This includes adding the control or controls that have been determined, then undertaking another risk assessment to determine the resultant risk using the drop-down fields for likelihood and consequence. Hopefully, the overall risk is reduced with controls in place. We then need to add if any further environmental monitoring is required, and if any further action required is to implement the control. And finally, designating the person who has the responsibility for taking the action. Finally, when the required action has been taken, describe the action taken and then select the date the action was taken using the drop-down field. Environmental impacts are never closed. The potential will almost always exist. Consequently, all environmental impact assessments are displayed on the Environmental Aspects and Impacts Register. This concludes the Environmental Aspects and Impacts Register screen tutorial.